Your ANC sins are catching up with you. You have prostituted yourselves to the highest bidders who grease your party wheels with no regard for the consequences. The New World Order sees which side you have picked, and now the chickens are coming home to roost.
And we believe that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, united in our diversity.
You said we won't be bullied. The truth is, for years we've been bullied. Our BRICS partners dictate who may and may not visit our countries.
The Afrikaner is part of that diversity.
You have chosen friends that are pariah nations, that are neither democratic.
It is not true that expropriation without compensation will...
Guys, these two speeches are actually another really set of vociferous speeches, not in a negative way, but you know, they are very vociferous with the truth. Minister of Correctional Services, Dr. Peter Gronewald and Gronewald Trollip actually spitting raw truths and facts about the way and the direction South Africa is actually going. And I think these speeches, even for me, I really, you know, kind of like struggle to really understand and accept the truth content. Minister Gronewald is actually encouraging and trying to remind South Africans not to forget the contribution of the Afrikaners in building South Africa's infrastructure and actually society. He actually also gives a really inconvenient truth, you know, on the dynamics on why, you know, things have become the way they are in Africa, in South Africa, to the point where people would be willing to leave as refugees to another country, you see. He actually, I thought Trollip actually is actually much more vociferous in this debate, where he actually argues that, you know, the leadership in South Africa cannot afford or tolerate or allow a race war that seems to be brewing in South Africa. And he's actually giving something that actually blew my mind. I think I mentioned it in my last video, that, you know, South Africa might actually argue that it cannot be bullied or it will not be bullied by Trump, but it has actually been bullied all along by BRICS. The BRICS partners, for which South Africa is a really important partner. Gronewald Trollip is actually arguing, giving really interesting facts on how BRICS has actually been bullying South Africa going forward, and calling, you know, the statement by President Ramaphosa and some other EFF or you know, other members in on the left-wing side of things, that they cannot be bullied by this bully that they argue has become Donald Trump. I thought Trollip also really gives instances on how South Africa has chosen the wrong friends, and that's actually now making the fact that the sins of the ANC, what he calls the ANC sins, seems to be catching up with the ANC, and what, you know, the country now has to really kind of like reconcile with that and try to build from really interesting comments and really in parliament. And that's what actually really interests me, because this kind of like revelations are actually done in the midst of everyone, in front of everyone. This is not something that's hidden or something in parliament, and raw truths being put out. And that's the beauty of democracy and, you know, free speech. And I really hope, at least, even though South Africa might actually be argued to be kind of like dwindling in terms of economy and all that, I really hope that free speech will still be something that's really beautiful, to really see how people speak bitter, raw, inconvenient truths to the faces of even the highest man in authority, President Ramaphosa. Let's quickly listen to Minister Gronewald and Gronewald Trollip break down really inconvenient truths about the direction of and future of South Africa, and share your thoughts in the comments.
Ungqongqoshe we-correctional services siyacela ngaphambili umnumzana uGronewald.
Geachte Speaker, die slagspreuk van die Vryheidsfront Plus verlede jaar was: kom ons herstel en bou. Let us restore and rebuild South Africa. The preamble of the Constitution determines that we respect those who worked to build and develop our country. And we believe that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, united in our diversity. The ANC's Freedom Charter goes even further, saying, belongs to all who live in it, black and white. Now, Honourable Speaker, I want to put it very clearly that the Afrikaner is part of that diversity. And we want to build South Africa. En laat ons met mekaar eerlik wees. President Trump het die kolle geplaas op die Afrikaner in Suid-Afrika. Ek sê vir hom dankie, want ons is deel van Suid-Afrika. En ja, as daar mense is wat die land wil verlaat, dis hulle vrye keuse. Die Vryheidsfront Plus sal nie voorskriftelik wees nie. Maar agbare president, ek is hier om te bly. We are here to restore and rebuild. And if we want to solve the problems of South Africa, we must also look into the inconvenient truth of what is happening in South Africa. And part of that is land reform. In my limited time, I will focus on that. And it brings me to the Expropriation Act. And I want to put it very clearly that it is not true that expropriation without compensation will solve the land issue. What are the facts? If you go and look at the annual reports of the department, and if you look at the restitution, there were about 80,000 claims in terms of the restitution to address the unjust of the 1913 Land Acts. Of those claimants, 94%, and it's in the annual report, didn't want the land, they wanted the compensation. If we go to land redistribution, it is in the annual reports that 80% of the projects were failures. So to say that expropriation without compensation will solve the land issue and land reform is just not true. But what is happening in South Africa? And if I give you these examples of what is happening, we must remember one thing, that with social media, everything you put, whether it's on X or Facebook or whatever platform, it is for the world to see. And I want to refer specifically to the illegal, can I say, the invasion and occupation of land. Gronewald was one example where people just illegally invade the land. I want to give you another example. There is a farmer farming near Wepener, and there came a farmer with his cattle. He cut the fences and he is occupying that land. He went to the police.
Order, Honourable Gronewald, can you take your seat? Honourable members, we can converse without drowning the speaker. We can hurtle again without drowning the speaker or using our hands to make our statements. I would really appeal that we allow the speaker to present his statement. Honourable Gronewald, you can proceed.
He went to the police asking protection, but they refused. As we speak now, there is illegal land occupation at Stilfontein. There's a court order instructing the police to prevent it, but they do nothing. And that's the problem. If the police does not act, they're part of the executive. And then it can be said, but you are complicit to this illegal land invasion and occupation. Therefore, Honourable President, if we talk and we say we want to solve the problems, these issues must be addressed. The Afrikaner always contributed, whether you like it or not. They were part of those we say we respect, who worked to build and develop our country. We can only succeed to ensure that we are successful if we address our problems and we look each other in the eye and put the inconvenient truth on the table. We must ensure that we make South Africa so prosperous that people don't want to leave South Africa to go to other countries. But then, ons moet dan vir mekaar sê, erken die regte van die Afrikaner. Ons wil hard werk om 'n toekoms te skep vir onsself, vir ons kinders
Order,
en die
honourable
toekoms
member, your time is up.
vir almal in Suid-Afrika. I thank you.
Honourable Speaker, Honourable President, it's time for South Africans to be South African and to honour and respect the preamble of the Constitution and the Constitution itself. This is no time for ethnic and cultural individuality, no time for racial polarisation or talk of secession. We cannot afford a race war, and we cannot allow those who foment this here and abroad to incite us. You said we won't be bullied. Thereafter, President Trump issued an ill-informed executive order, fueled by divisive narratives designed to fracture us. This should have reminded us all that we do not live in splendid global isolation. The backpedaling in the face of Trump's executive order and the looming threat of AGOA's revocation has been remarkable. It reminds me of the popular acronym FAFO. Be careful of what you wish for. The truth is, for years we've been bullied. Our BRICS partners dictate who may and may not visit our country, such as the Dalai Lama, and who we can and cannot engage with, such as the Taiwanese government. You have chosen friends that are pariah nations, that are neither democratic nor uphold human rights, nations at war with their own people through repressive regimes. Conversely, we treat democratic nations, our major trading partners, with disdain and insult. Let it be known that the racist rhetoric so freely bandied about in this Parliament and on party rally stages by the likes of the ANC, the EFF and MKP has grave consequences for us as a nation. Your ANC sins are catching up with you. You have prostituted yourselves to the highest bidders who grease your party wheels with no regard for the consequences. The New World Order sees which side you have picked, and now the chickens are coming home to roost. Javier Milei was unambiguous about this at Davos. Mr. President, your lip service to fighting corruption while promoting and protecting cadres who have failed at local government level, who've been implicated and convicted of egregious corruption and tender fraud, undermines our international reputation. This severely limits our ability to attract foreign direct investment to grow our anemic economy. We have a new generation, a new government, in words, not in deed. There's an interesting article about the changing of the guard in the United States entitled Overrides. It focuses on the dismantling of an entrenched and manifestly corrupt order. It is clear that there's been no override or dismantling of our entrenched corrupt order, as your SONA speech was as delusional, out of touch and fanciful as ever. Mr. President, you displayed dystopian disconnection, and I'm not surprised because your ministers do it every day. Minister Mantashe said Sizabakupa when we asked him, when are you going to deal with the Lily Mine victims? It's now been 9 years. We hear that Vantage is going to open the mine, not a word about the Lily Mine victims. Your police minister informs you that every police station has a victim-friendly service centre. They don't. Just ask every single GBV victim who has to go to a police centre to report a rape what it feels like. Your Minister of Home Affairs claims to be eradicating backlogs, yet his department cannot resolve a case I've referred to him of 2 South Africans awaiting passports abroad for more than a year. It's easier for illegal immigrants to infiltrate Home Affairs and bribe their way to obtaining documents that give them access to South African social security and other citizenship privileges that our citizens don't have. No, sir, the situation is actually dystopian. Apart from watching some GNU parties clapping like seals during your address and listening to their valiant attempts at endorsing
Honourable
your
Member,
commentary,
your time is
the
up.
rest of the country is
Honourable
not convinced.
Modise.